Once there was a man named Ethan Reed who had it all: success, wealth, and a career that seemed to have no ceiling. Ethan had worked his way up from the ground, starting with nothing, building his reputation as a sharp, driven businessman. He was the golden child of his industry, respected by peers and admired by many. But as with all great stories, a dark reality was lurking in the shadows, and it wasn't long before his perfect world would begin to unravel. The rise Ethan's journey to success wasn't a smooth one. He had grown up in a modest home, the son of a single mother who struggled to make ends meet. From an early age, he learned the value of hard work and the importance of never giving up. He used his challenges as fuel, pushing himself to excel in every area of life. College was just the beginning. Soon after graduation, he found himself climbing the corporate ladder at an unimaginable pace. At 30, Ethan was already leading a successful startup. He had become the face of innovation in his field, and his company was expanding rapidly. He made it look effortless, as if everything came naturally to him. However, beneath the surface, the pressure of maintaining success began to take its toll. The fall. Then everything changed. One catastrophic mistake, the kind that no one saw coming, brought Ethan to his knees. A decision made in haste, a risk that didn't pay off, and suddenly the empire he'd built started to crumble. Clients withdrew, partnerships dissolved, and the media started asking questions. It wasn't long before his company was in freefall, and Ethan's reputation was in tatters. The man who had once walked with pride and confidence now found himself in a pit of despair. The weight of his failure consumed him, and for the first time in his life, he didn't know how to move forward. His personal life wasn't any better. Relationships had soured, trust had been broken, and the loneliness felt unbearable. The darkness of failure seeped into every corner of his existence. For weeks, Ethan could do nothing but sit in his office, staring at the walls, paralyzed by his own thoughts. It felt as though he were drowning. The fear of never being able to get back up haunted him, whispering in his ear that the world had forgotten about him, that his best days were behind him. Depression and anxiety took hold, and the prospect of a comeback seemed like a distant, impossible dream. The turning point. But then one evening, as he sat in his office, an unexpected visitor arrived. It was his old mentor, James, a man who had been there when Ethan first started his career, guiding him through the tough decisions. James had built his own empire years before Ethan, but he had faced his own fall from grace. The difference between James and Ethan, though, was that James had chosen to rise again, to build something even greater than before. "Ethan," James said with a stern but compassionate tone, "I've seen this before. I know what you're going through. But I also know this. Success isn't about never failing. It's about how you rise after you fall." Ethan looked at James, disbelieving. How could he possibly rise again from the ashes? The weight of his failures felt insurmountable. But James's words lingered in his mind long after the conversation ended. That night, something clicked in Ethan. He realized that the only thing standing between him and his comeback was his own fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of being forgotten. But fear, as he now understood, was the very thing that kept him shackled to his past. The comeback strategy. James had given him one piece of advice that Ethan would never forget. A comeback isn't just about what you do in the moment. It's about what you do every day to rebuild. You need to create a strategy. And so Ethan began his comeback, not with one grand gesture, but with a plan, one small step at a time. 1. Self-awareness and reflection. Ethan started by confronting his fears head-on. He took time to reflect on the mistakes he had made, acknowledging them without judgment. This wasn't about beating himself up. It was about understanding where he had gone wrong and how to avoid the same pitfalls in the future. He began journaling every night, writing down his thoughts, his feelings, and his goals. Clarity started to emerge from the chaos. Rebuilding trust and relationships. Ethan realized that trust was broken, not just with his clients, but with those closest to him. He reached out to old contacts, business partners, and even friends who had distanced themselves. It was uncomfortable. Some people were willing to listen, while others were not. But he understood that building trust would take time. Each conversation was a brick in the foundation of his future success. 3. Developing new skills. Ethan knew that he had to evolve. The business world had changed, and so had he. He dedicated himself to learning new skills, attending workshops, reading books, and even finding mentors in areas where he had no expertise. He had to reinvent himself in a world that no longer respected the old version of him. He didn't expect immediate results. There were setbacks, small victories, and moments of doubt. But Ethan pushed forward, learning to embrace the discomfort. He knew that success was no longer about achieving perfection. It was about consistency and persistence. Vision for the future. Ethan focused on creating a vision for the future that was not just about financial success, but about leaving a legacy. He began to set long-term goals that aligned with his values and passions. The goal wasn't just to make a comeback. It was to build something that would make a positive impact on the world. The dark reality. But Ethan's comeback wasn't easy. There were days when it felt as though he was walking through a never-ending storm. Every step forward seemed to be met with two steps back. There were sleepless nights, tears, and moments when he doubted whether it was worth it. The darkness was always lurking, reminding him of his failures. One evening after months of hard work, Ethan received a call from a potential investor who had shown interest in his new venture. It was the break he had been waiting for. But as he picked up the phone, a wave of anxiety hit him like a tidal wave. What if it was all a mistake? What if this was another setback waiting to happen? The fear of rejection, of failure, gripped him tighter than ever. But then Ethan remembered something important. He had already failed once, and that hadn't destroyed him. It had made him stronger, the triumph. The call was a success. That investor not only decided to invest in his business, but also became a long-term partner. From there, Ethan's comeback began to gain momentum. One small win led to another. Slowly but surely, his company began to rebuild, and with it, his reputation. Ethan had learned that success wasn't about avoiding failure. It was about how you responded to it. Years later, as Ethan stood at the helm of a thriving business, he realized that his greatest victory wasn't in the wealth he had accumulated, but in the person he had become. The journey was far from easy, but it had transformed him, shaped him into someone who had not only survived the storm, but had learned to dance in the rain. The lesson Ethan's comeback wasn't just about business, it was about life. The lesson was clear. Success is never linear. There will always be obstacles, failures, and setbacks. But it's in those moments of darkness that the greatest opportunities for growth lie. The key to success isn't avoiding the storm, but learning to navigate through it. And so, for anyone facing their own dark reality, remember, the comeback isn't just a moment, it's a journey. Keep moving forward.